And so for the 8 extras, it's actually really interesting. So maybe we could talk a little bit more about, just for an overview of the 8 extras, I'll draw a chart because it's a little easier to visualize it if you have some kind of chart here. So,
I don't want to derail.
Well, what is it?
I was going to say Yin Wei Mai and is used for like sleep treatments.
Yeah.
And how does I don't really think of that as rewriting curriculum.
Okay, we can talk about it. Let me really quick draw this chart here. So, if you look at the Chong Mai, it's like this central channel that's creating everything. The idea is like the Chong is like this central node. So this would be like Do 20, and this would be like Ren 1, or you could say this is heaven and this is earth, depending on how poetic you want to be with it. And then the Chong Mai gives birth to the Ren and the Du, right? So from this like central node, this is the idea of like, again, you have this kind of image of having a yin and yang node, and when it connects, you have this arc between the two, just like with the kidneys, you have this arc between the two that spontaneously gives rise to this thing. So you have this connection, and then this connection generates a movement. So the same thing with the kidneys. Remember I was talking about with the kidneys. When the kidneys connect, it spontaneously generates a movement. So the Chong Mai gives rise to the yin and yang. So when you have this descending down, the yang comes down and it makes contact here. You've created the Chong Mai. Then immediately you have a rising up. That's the Du Mai. And then the rising of the Du causes a sinking of the Ren. And this is yin and yang within the body. So this is this interplay, and this all happens immediately. When the Chong Mai is created, so they would say that when a cell is, like if you have a cell and it's...
The second division in embryology, when the cell is fertilized by the sperm, the two, what are they called? They're attractors that pull the DNA apart to...
telomeres.
No, sorry, on the DNA.
What is it?
Poles that they're fibers in the cell that move the organelles around.
Oh, okay.
And that forms the first channel.
Huh.
And that's the.
Oh, you're talking about like microtubules and stuff and microfilaments?
Yeah, microtubules that when the cell's getting ready for its first division.
Yeah.
That sets up that first polarity.
Yeah, and I've heard even people say like the spark in the machine, he talks about this, where
that's where it's from.
Where when the sperm first penetrates into the egg, this becomes Bai Hui, and then immediately as soon as Bai Hui forms, because yin and yang mutually arise, as soon as you create this yang point, then you immediately also create a yin point, which would be Hui Yin, and then the Chong Mai is implied here. So the idea is that there's like this kind of, there's lots of levels they look at this on, you know, but yeah, so you have like this way of looking at it where you could say that immediately this first, they call this like the first, what do they call it? They call them like the evolutions. You have Chong, Ren, and Du, and then you have the Yin Wei, Yang Wei. What word do they use? I forget what word they use. We can say evolutions, just like Pokemon. But this is one way to look at it. And then if you want to understand kind of the whole system together, I would say the way, this is like the maybe prenatal way to look at it. But if you look at it kind of in the physical world, you could say, okay, this is like the Cartesian plane. And in a Cartesian plane, you have space and time, right? So let's say this is space, and then this is time. And then this is the way you can look at the second evolution. So when you're navigating space, if you go this way, let's say this is exterior to the self. Well, this is the self. And then this is interior. And then with time, this is going to be future. And this is going to be past. Okay. Then you could say that this is how you can plot the Wei and the Qiao Mais. So, so the Qiao Mai's manage space. So interior movement is the Yin Qiao Mai, and exterior movement is the Yang Qiao Mai. And then with time, it's the Wei Mai's. So going toward the future is the Yang Wei Mai, and then going toward the past is the Yin Wei Mai. So that's the way you can visualize the Wei and the Qiaos. That's all they're doing. They're polarizing. The Qiao Mai polarizes toward the internal or the external, and then the Wei Mai polarizes toward the future or the past. And they often your trajectory is like this. Okay, flashback to trig. Okay. So often your trajectory is like this. So it's like it's often not cleanly one or the other. Often you have a net polarization where you're polarizing Yang Wei Mai, Yang Qiao Mai simultaneously or something like that. And you'll see that these have lots of crossing points, and there's lots of crossover even with the symptoms that they'll develop. So if someone's developing like some symptom where, you know, let's take for example, well, which one did I draw here? Yeah, so this is polarizing yang in both directions, right? So let's take that one for example. If someone's polarized Yang Qiao Mai, Qiao is talking about walking, by the way, right? Qiao, they translate it as the heel, but Qiao also means like to step. So it means which way are you stepping? Which way are you walking towards? So walking exterior or interior. So it's spatial again. So, and then Wei has to do with like linking. So this means linking. But if let's say if you're polarized Yang Qiao Mai direction, then that means you are going to be, your energy is going to be polarized psychologically toward the exterior. So people that are polarized Yang Qiao Mai are interested in, or you could say they're obsessed with, or whatever, the things other than themselves. So usually the big other, so really the theme would be to say other, okay? That's what they're going to be interested in. And over here it's going to be self, okay? So this is the big way to describe Yin and Yang Qiao Mai, is other and self. But the other that normally people get obsessed with is either God, government, or something in between. Aliens. It's like Bigfoot. It's like the outside things, all these things out there, you know? I mean, or if it's secular, you know, again, it could be like, you know, whatever. Like, it could even be like scientific things, you know? But they're interested in like other. And then the people that are hyperpolarized toward Yin Qiao Mai, they're very interested in self. So here you see people that are like doing like Zen meditation. This is like Zazen. It's like they're just like, all their attention goes in. And doing sitting meditation polarizes toward, and this is where you can look at like cultivation methods and how they apply, is like it polarizes toward Yin Qiao Mai and Yin Wei Mai. So it's like, well, maybe not Yin Wei necessarily, but it polarizes Yin Qiao Mai. And almost all, like when you're doing like this stuff, like Little Boy Worships Buddha, whatever it's called, Little Boy Worships Buddha, you're polarizing Yin Qiao Mai. So you're throwing all your weight to the inside, you end up activating Yin Qiao Mai points, you're collapsing everything toward the Yin level. So this stuff is often what people are playing with when they're doing like cultivation methods. Yeah, and then obviously with time, I mean, this is apparent. People that are polarized Yang Wei Mai are focused on the future, Yin Wei Mai are focused on the past. So that's how to look at the second evolution.
I've also heard that, I think from Coco, same class as Bailey, that you can even see in the way that people's feet are when they lay down.
Mm-hmm.
People are more yang Chao.
Yeah, so Yin Qiao Mai walking is like this. In fact, in Taoism, they call it star stepping. So have you guys ever looked at any Taoist cultivation stuff? So they have a method called star stepping, and they would, like, if they go on a pilgrimage as a Taoist, like as a Taoist priest, you go on a pilgrimage, they would say you have to do star stepping all the way, and star stepping is like this. You land on the ball with a foot, you turn in, and you're supposed to like draw, you like suction kidney 1 up, and you connect up to here. So it's like every step you're doing that. But yeah, this is like pigeon-toed walking, like this is Yin Qiao Mai. I mean, and then, yeah, people that are Yang Qiao Mai are very like this, you know, they're the people that are walking that way. So yeah, and again, like it's like the naming with calling it like the heel vessels, I think has something to do with that. But that's not just for this stuff. I mean, you can see with like all the channels to a certain degree, you'll see like people polarize in certain ways and it changes the way their body's moving or whatever, you know. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, talking about like using like Qiao Mai's for sleep, for instance. I mean, fundamentally, if you're trying to change one of the Qiao Mai's, you are trying to change the DNA. You are trying to change the epigenetics. It's implied because the only substance the 8 extras are dealing in is Jing. They don't deal with blood. They don't deal with Yin Qi at all. So the only thing they have is Jing, and the Jing is the DNA, essentially. I mean, you're dealing with like, it's the DNA. I mean, I don't know what else it would be. It's the bone marrow in a way. I guess you could say you're trying to change their marrow, but I mean, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense really scientifically to think of it like that, I think. But yeah, so I mean, they do talk about it like that. Definitely like they use the channels like that, but when you're treating the 8 extra, you are saying there's a hormonal issue, for instance, and hormones are part of the Jing, right? So it's like you're implying I'm working on something on a very deep level, and I'm gonna have to get the body to like change the way it's expressing. And it's epigenetic, it is. Like if you're changing the way the hormones are expressing by using acupuncture, you're changing the epigenetics. Because, I mean, that stuff's all encoded through genetic pathways, and you want to change the protein transcription that's changing the hormonal expression. So it's like, boom, boom, it's like still going from epigenetics. So, I mean, you're not, you would, I think, theoretically, to some degree, still be considered to be changing their destiny. Like, they were really uptight about it in certain dynasties. Like, they wouldn't allow people to work on the 8 extra channels, or they would say it's illegal to do this because you're changing the person's destiny and you can't do that, So yeah, and in certain dynasties they said it's not possible. So it depends on the politics of the time. If it was a Confucian emperor, if it was a Buddhist emperor or what. There were never any Taoist emperors really because the Taoists are all anarchists. But so nobody let them get power because they were, it wasn't going to work well for the country.
Actually really interesting you talking about it like that because like David, my spouse and I, we were talking about how much the 8 extras and like the other channels other than the primary are used at the school.
Yeah.
And how at OCOM we were learning like you don't go into the 8 extras
Casually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just
We're taught that here too, to a degree.
yeah, but then at the same time we're gonna have to be doing 8 extra treatments on people.
Right.
Gotta learn sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if we're not it's just a really interesting aspect of what we're learning right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, theoretically, by the way, when you're needling the yuan level, it's not like a physical depth, It's not like you're putting the needle to a certain depth in the body and you've suddenly reached the yuan level. Even if you're scraping the needle on the bone, which by the way, when we were studying needle technique, we had Andrew Nugent Head, he made us scrape the bones with the needles. He was like, I want you to feel what this feels like. Because it was a technique that he used. But it's not like you're reaching a certain depth and there's the yuan qi. The yuan qi is a vibration. It's a frequency of the body. So if you want to get to the yuan qi, whether you're doing a divergent channel treatment or an 8 extra channel treatment, you have to be able to bring your body to that frequency to touch it. Because you can only touch it when you're at that certain dense frequency. And with the Wei Qi, you have to also come to that very superficial frequency. But with this stuff, it's like, yeah, you can't really go into it casually in a way unless you're already someone that's swimming in that frequency. Certain people can get, I think, into the 8 extra frequency very easy. It's the people that it's the ones that are like naturally very psychic. It's the people that are they have magic around them. It's the people that you ask, hey, has anything miraculous ever happened to you? And they're like, yeah, like I see ghosts every night and, I see my ancestors and yeah, they're just used to things not being, they're used to miracles. They're used to being like, oh, something changed, like, oh, yeah, of course, that whatever. Like they're used to things not being quite based in reality, or they're like swimming like in between the lines. And you see this with like in traditional cultures in shamanism. Like that's why the shamans were always like crazy, because they were swimming in like half reality, half imagination, like that imaginary place. And so you have to get into that like yuan level in order to be able to touch the Jing or to get a resonance with the Jing. And so some people are able to do that really easily, but most people can't do that casually. Most people are very much, they're at the Yin level all the time. The people that are hyperactive and can't keep focus and are just very flaky and, that's the Wei level people. The people where their mind is usually circulating more at Wei level. or they're more at that very superficial level. No, most people, everyday conversations, we're talking yin level. The people that are yuan level are the ones that are super dialed in, and often they don't want to talk at all, and they're like meditating and praying all the time or something. Or they're just naturally built like that, and maybe they're not even religious, they're just built like that. Because some people, it's like their astrology and their genetics came together to make them like that. So they're just natural healers, or they're naturally able to touch that. So yeah, I mean, I think and this is why cultivation is so important, doing some kind of cultivation. I mean, I think most people aren't able to touch this stuff for a long time, or maybe ever. And you have to be able to access it within yourself before you can access it with other people. You have to be able to know like what it feels like to go to that level. Like I said, I do Tai Chi, and in Tai Chi they say that you have to get the Qi to sink to the bones. That's what they call it. So they say there's this feeling you get where you get the Qi to sink to the bones. And if you can accomplish that, then you're resonating in with the yuan level. And what it feels like is it feels like the mind becomes very thick. It feels like when you wake up in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m. and everything's really still, and your mind feels very heavy and very dense and very thick, and everything feels like it comes to like a still point. And I think it probably feels different for everyone. But yeah, you want to find that place within yourself, and however deep you can go, you can access with other people, theoretically. But also theoretically, if you can change someone's Chong Mai, then you can transform them into a frog or something, like theoretically. So, because the Chong Mai is literally just the shape of the body. So it's like, I've heard people say, actually I just was in a Facebook battle with someone on the Ann Cecil Sturman appreciation page or whatever on Facebook. And it was about this. I said something like that. I was like, yeah, you can theoretically shift somebody into a werewolf or something, like if you change their Chong. And they're like, no, you can't. Someone gave a good explanation though. Someone said that they thought that what we're doing is we're attuning them back to their Chong Mai. So it's like if the physical body comes out of alignment with the original state that the body is meant to be in, you do a reattunement so that they come into attunement. And that made sense to me. But I think that if you can do that, you could still use it for evil, probably. I don't know.
They were originally a frog.
Maybe. Maybe.
Is that speaking, I think the Chong Mai is the blueprint?
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, the blueprint, and that's just the DNA. It's like the idea is that you have like the physical version of the Chong Mai is the DNA, and the energetic version is a holographic body, right? It's like the blueprint would be like a holographic body. And so, yeah, it would be like this kind of holographic image of what we are, separate from the physical form. Or like underlying the physical form or something like that. So, yeah. And then like the inaction of that, the creation of the body comes through the unfolding of all of the other aspects of the 8 extras. So it's like the movement of the Du mobilizes the resources of the Chong. The movement of the Ren is the mobilization of the resources. The Du is like the activity within everything. I don't know, but yeah. What book are you guys using for the 8 extras?
We haven't had
We're
a
not
class.
Okay.
there yet, which is one reason I was pushing back on going
Yeah.
there because
Okay, yeah.
third year,
Yeah.
fourth year.
Well, I mean, in first year, though, you guys did channel overview, right?
And
That touches on all this stuff.
It touched it and raised it mostly.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that personally because I feel like it's gonna help me better in clinic observation, understanding exactly what people are explaining.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, just having the framework is important. Like, big picture, having the frame in place where you can kind of place everything. So you hear the word and you're like, okay, I can like have a concept for what it means when they say Yang Wei Mai or whatever, Yeah.
So the Chong beans on the tongue, does that have any relation to the Chong Mai
Yeah.
then?
that's another thing that I've never heard before coming to the school. Chong beans.
Because this school's always talking about the 8 extra stuff.
It's like,
Yeah, what are
two
Chong
raised,
beans?
it's like two raised areas on the middle of the tongue on
It's
both sides
this.
of that center line. Yeah.
Okay.
I have it all the time.
so,
So-
it's, yeah.
Physically, this region is the abdominis rectus. So it means you have tension in the abdominis rectus.
Okay.
So if you see that, that means that here there's like a tension, either
Was
energetically
it
or
redness or raised?
It's raised.
it's raised.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like the actual, like if you look at it from the side, if this were a flat tongue, you would have like kind of a band here like that.
The tongue's got 6-pack.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like a 6-pack on your tongue. Yeah, something like that.
going through something emotional, whether it's like a positive thing or like a growth or a turmoil, you know.
I mean, it's just first trajectory of the Chong Mai. It's like this region. Yeah. Huh?
That was trajectory.
Ancestry.
Oh, trajectory?
Yeah.
No, ancestries.
Ancestry.
It's ancestries.
It was trajectory.
No. First,
Or 8 extras are
for the first, second, third, they call it first ancestry, second ancestry, third ancestry. The trajectories are like the way they break down the channel. So you have like first trajectory of Chong Mai is from stomach 30 to kidney 21. Second trajectory is kidney 21 to kidney 27. Third trajectory comes up the face, like gallbladder 20 over to the do 20 and stuff. But yeah, so on the tongue, I mean, it's like anytime you have a raised area like that, it's just, have you guys learned, you guys are familiar with like the landscape on the tongue? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like you can like read, like if you see like irregularities in the shape, you can read like this is the diaphragm. So like when this area, when you see like a defined line across here and it's like all this is puffy up at the front, then you can tell the diaphragm's tight. Like you can see when the diaphragm's tight because it'll show up on the tongue like that. Or when someone has like those polyps in the back of the tongue, like back here, there's like kind of inflamed papillae back there that look like there's polyps, then that means that there's likely inflamed polyps in the lower body, like pelvic or uterine or intestinal or something. So often this is like intestinal, like this can come along with like diverticulitis or something like that. So yeah, it's just like on the tongue. In fact, tongue was what I relied on for like the first 5 years I was practicing instead of pulse, because pulse is so hard. So tongue is easy compared to pulse. So it's like really telling. So yeah, and tongue I had to learn too. It's like very detailed. You want to get a bright light and really look close at everything because there's like very minor things that you can tell from looking at the tongue up close. But well, do we want to talk about more? I don't know. Are we out of time? We're getting close to our time. It feels like we're kind of talked for a long time. Yeah. Do you guys want to chat about anything else, or we wrap it up right now?
This was great. So
Yeah.
fun.
Cool. Yeah. It's fun for me too. Yeah. I like talking about all this stuff. So, yeah. And like I said.